Welcome to the Valley of Outlaws podcast, a podcast for those looking to take the road less trodden, and a podcast for those seeking more. Right, Wilf, you are Outlaw number 18. Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I've said it to a few people now, like that is a title which can go with you for the rest of your life. So
it's big news. Thank you.
It is. It can go on your LinkedIn profile whenever you want it. Just, people will know from now on you're Outlaw number 18. So when I ever start these podcasts, I always like to ask the same question. So in your own words, who are you? What do you do? And why do you do what you do?
Well, my name is Wilf. I'm probably about 5'8". I'm a bloke. Probably 5'9" on a good time, on a good day. Sorry. Why do I do what I do? I run a chocolate business, which is going really well. It's obviously has its ups and downs as any kind of scale up would. I'm also a father, young father. So Ari is now about 6 months old now, which is, proven quite challenging, but also really, really fun at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm married to this great lady, Laura. That's me is kind of on the surface. Deep down, I suppose I'm just a guy just trying to make my way through life and just be as happy and as fulfilled as I possibly can, just like every single human being on the planet, I suppose.
I love that. And how has having a child and starting a business and growing a business kind of like interacted with each other initially? Has it been quite a challenge, or have you allocated time and learned actually for how to fall into a routine?
I think I've really, really enjoyed it. I think I'm up early anyway. Normally Aria probably wakes up about 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that's good for me anyway. And I think you just go to work and you're super focused. You have her on your screensaver. Every time you look at your phone, you're like, right, this is why I'm doing my work. This is for her. And then it basically, when it gets to 4 or 5 o'clock, it gives me the excuse, right, I've got to go home. I've got my second job at home. And I'll open the door and Laura will just probably hand me the baby and that's it. That's it, really.
Is that straight away? Is that a feeling, that responsibility you get from the first moment you meet her? And
I think I feel bad sometimes. I'll walk in and I'll say hi to her. I'll be like, right, where's the baby? And just kind of forget about Laura. So I now need to give Laura the attention, and I go over to the baby and play with her, and also just, I don't know, take the strain off Laura, because Laura's just there all day with the baby. There's only so many series of Netflix that you can watch until you sort of go slightly mad. So I guess just taking the load off her, really. But I think there's a lot of negative press about you having your first baby, and oh god, you're not going to get any sleep, it's going to be really tough, how are you going to cope with work as well? But Ari's been really good, luckily, and just really, really enjoyed it. And I think no one can replicate your first child, that kind of feeling. You're looking at them being like, God, that's a little bit of me in there. They don't feel like, she doesn't feel like mine, but she feels like, right, I'm kind of looking at myself. It's quite a weird way to...
I imagine I'll only understand that once I get to the same stage in life.
One day. Is that soon?
No, at the moment. No, living the single life at the moment, and
nice.
It's quite freeing. So it's quite nice. Anyway, I want to jump back to your time at school, because I think that, looking back then, the question is basically, what was your vision for who you wanted to be when you were at school? Like, what was kind of like the future you saw for yourself, and how different has life turned out now to what that has?
Interesting question. I think I didn't really know back at school, and no one really teaches you like what happiness is. And I think there's a lot of, I think you see success when you're at school as getting some good grades. And then I perceived at school people having lots of money as being successful. But I'm kind of really interested now and trying to work out what success actually is. I think it's not just about money. It's about so many other factors. It's lifestyle. It's finding out what you enjoy, what you're passionate about. I think I played a lot of cricket, as you know. We were at school together. That was my identity, as it were, at the start of my life. And that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to play for England. That was it. I was just solely focused on that. And it was only until I went to university I realised that you could actually have fun outside of a cricket pitch as well. That I realised that actually maybe it wasn't for me. But I think every single year my goalposts kind of change of where I want to go, and I'm quite impulsive. I'll kind of just go with where what feels right at the time, not necessarily overthinking it.
Mm-hmm. No, fair enough. And what was it about cricket that kind of got you hooked initially? What was kind of the passion, the thing which you were like,
I thought you were going to ask this, and I thought about it before, and I was like, but before I was really conscious of me even being alive, I was apparently already playing cricket.
Interesting.
So I think, I don't know, I was quite lucky when I was younger, just being quite coordinated. Like I was riding a bike without stabilisers when I was 2, apparently.
Bloody hell.
And apparently the moment I hit 3, I basically grabbed a cricket bat and I just demanded Dad just to throw balls at me for hours on end. No matter what I was doing or what he was doing, I was like making him throw balls at me, which is quite funny and quite weird. I don't know where that's come from. Yeah. I must have realised that, right, I am coordinated. So this is quite fun. I don't know. So what did you ask me? What got me?
Yeah. What was the kind of thing which really connected you to cricket as well? And
I think it helps when you're when you're good at something, you want to do more of it. Yeah. Voice just broke then. You want to do more of it. You get reward. I was meeting lots of really good people. The coaches that I was coaching, they took me under their wing and felt a lot of camaraderie throughout the whole process. I think when you grow up and then there's more pressure and you realise, right, I could be paid to do this and this is my identity, that's when it started becoming less fun. When it wasn't just me going out and hitting a few 4s and hitting a 6 and then getting out, didn't really matter. But when you start getting paid to do it, that's when the pressure comes, which is a shame really, but
it's taking it seriously, isn't it, as well, in that sense. Like at school it's still kind of like a hobby and a thing you do outside of like class and living in that whole kind of bubble, I guess. So when it's like your full focus as well, you go, right, this is my one chance, and then that pressure.
Exactly.
And what were kind of like the highs and lows you experienced then when you're at university? Like what were the kind of triggers which were making you go, maybe apart from what you just said, but maybe this isn't what I really, really want to do?
I don't know what it was. I mean, I knew I had some talent. I didn't really have that passion during university just to like go in and work as hard as I could at it. I did that at school and the lead up to it. But I kind of got to a point where I was like, right, I've been playing since I've been 3. You know, it was 17, 18 years worth of cricket, right? There's for me, there was more to life than just chasing a leather ball around.
Yeah.
Other people, you know, one of my best mates is still playing professional cricket and he absolutely loves it. And I feel like to be the best at something, you've got to be really, really passionate about it, probably.
Yeah.
And I lost that passion for whatever reason. I can't really put a finger on it, but I just thought, right, there's more to life than this for me. Let's go on to a new challenge.
And what was the kind of the new challenges initially?
New challenges initially was trying to convince, I think, everyone that I'm not Wilf the cricketer. I'm just like, yes. I'm Wilf. Yeah. I've got my own, separate identity or whatever that isn't the cricketer. So that was the first thing.
Yeah.
Second thing was, I guess, filling my time. All my summers were playing cricket and travelling to Lancashire, Cornwall, all those sorts of places. But then it was kind of working out, right, what could be really fun for me to do that isn't going to be behind a desk all day, that will get me out there, will get me to kind of meet amazing people like I did through cricket, but then also be in control of my own destiny and not necessarily be working under someone. And be bossed about, essentially.
And kind of, was there an entrepreneurial spirit to you in terms of, did you think actually I could build something from scratch or going into a partnership with someone else? Was that a kind of a real possibility and something you truly believed you could follow?
Yeah, to be honest, when I was playing cricket, I didn't think about anything else other than cricket. Dad's an entrepreneur. He's run his own business since he was 30, really. So that entrepreneurial blood is in my veins. And also Mum set up her own interior design business as well, and they kind of worked in tandem for a good 20 years. So yeah, I think it's always been there. And I think it was, getting into chocolate, which is super random. I guess Dad invested in a cocoa company. And after I stopped cricket, I thought, right, this could be something that would be really interesting to get into, especially working with Dad. I thought that could be quite fun. It's grown much bigger than both he and I thought it would. So yeah, that entrepreneurial blood's definitely there. I think it's mainly just being, I guess, in control. Well, you're not really in control, to be honest, when you're running a business. Like every week's completely different, but you feel more in control of your destiny and what you put in. More often than not, you're gonna get out.
Yeah. And what were they like, your parents, in terms of growing up? When you had these moments of doubt, were they kind of very encouraging to go and try lots of things, or like, I, without slating my parents, because they always call me out for this, but it's like they were very kind of conscious of, like, I went to do an architecture degree because doing an art degree would be not great. It's much harder to make a career in art. Go and do architecture because it's far more easy to find a career path. Like, were your parents people saying find a steady kind of like route forward, or just follow your heart and follow your intuition and put 100% into it? What was
I don't think they gave me any guidance after I gave up cricket of like, you should do property or you should do insurance. It was like, go and do something, and you'll find out what you want to do. So that was great. And I think when I gave up cricket, they got behind me straight away. I think initially they were like upset to a degree. Bear in mind, Dad's probably driven me millions of miles to various cricket pitches and given up all of his weekends. But I think at the end of the day, they just want you to be happy. So yeah, they're not too much guidance, but obviously they guide me now whenever shit hits the fan, which it often does, when you're running a business.
Of course. And what were kind of like the early days like then in this kind of transformation into the cocoa business? And then I know I read on the website, it said you realised actually there's a better market. Your quality of chocolate was so good, you might as well sell it yourselves rather than get it to other kind of like sellers. So what was that kind of transformational journey like as well?
So I had a year working for the cocoa company, which was great. So I went out to the farms with Xander, who's actually one of the directors at Islands now, and just learnt more about cocoa, got kind of obsessed with it to a degree, and meeting lots of amazing people. And then worked in London for about a year just on my own, doing the cocoa sales, doing the website, setting up on Squarespace, trying to do some design on InDesign, doing it terribly, launching the brand. And I was kind of, I was living in Clapham at the time, and it's quite funny. I rented a desk in Shoreditch because I wanted to feel like the rest of my mates that were commuting, and I didn't want it to be in my kitchen. So I actually, travelled a good 50 minutes to go to work and came back. And often, some days I'd go in a suit just to prove to myself, right, you're doing something proper here. It's quite funny. So actually, I think
that's so interesting, though, actually, because as you said, you're forcing yourself into the work mindset. Like, you're forcing yourself in a position where you go, well, I'm here to work, rather than it's very easy when you are working from home to be like, okay, well, I've done what I need to do for this hour. I can have a break. I can do that. Like, that's very interesting.
I guess it's what I perceived work was being in a suit. But, as I've grown up and realised that actually being in a suit and not being behind a desk doesn't mean that you're not working.
Of course.
You could be going on a walk and thinking about your business, which is even more valuable probably than being behind the desk. So I did that for a year. And then I guess working very closely with Dad, I thought, right, if he's focusing on the cocoa, I think the added value is in the chocolate, because obviously selling a ton of chocolate is a lot more valuable than selling a ton of cocoa, even though the cocoa price recently is going absolutely crazy. And wanted to work with Dad, didn't necessarily want to work sort of super closely with him for obvious reasons. But actually now we work together closer than ever. We're speaking to each other all day, every day, because as the business grows, the more reliant we are on the cocoa company, and the more help I need on financials and all that sort of stuff. And I think we work quite well together. He's we're quite similar, but he's a different character to who I am. I see things different ways, and I think it kind of really works when running the business.
No, interesting. And when you were starting to kind of like formulate this idea for Islands Chocolate as well, what was that? What was the kind of process for you there as well? Like, how were you, like, I guess, envisioning what it was going to look like, how it was going to kind of be represented, and kind of the, I guess, the authenticity behind it?
First of all, was coming up with a really good name. Like, that took a good 6 months, just chucking names around. I think going on Photoshop, working out what the logos could be like. So coming up with the name, that was the first thing. The second thing was getting the trademark. I was worried that someone would nick that name, because Islands was took us ages to find it, but it was so perfect for what we are as a business, sourcing cocoa from Islands. It was perfect. And then I suppose there wasn't huge amounts of strategy, to be honest. And I think if I did it now, I would obviously spend a lot more time strategizing, but I just knew that there was a gap and we needed to try and plug it. And how we were going to get there, I was just going to work out as I went on. And I guess I'm quite impulsive as a character, and don't think too hard about quite big decisions sometimes, which is probably a bad thing sometimes as well. But I feel like that also comes with a lot of positives, that you kind of going with it, going with the flow, and spotting the gaps. When you have a strategy, sometimes you're a little bit more rigid.
Yeah. And did you have kind of like early kind of goals you looked to achieve? Like, were you going like, right, we need to get in one shop selling our chocolate? Because like when I started my wallpaper, my goal was I want to get in one golf club, and then I want to get in 10. And that was, you know, so it was more manageable.
We need to talk about this wallpaper thing, because I'm trying to put some wallpaper on the bathroom. So
we'll do it after.
I like the sound of the golf clubs. I'm not sure what Laura would think, but so. Yeah, I think what did you ask? You asked.
So basically, did you have like small steps and little goals you were trying to make
along
the way to build up?
Yeah, I think there's such a simple goal. Bear in mind, we've got the cocoa company. The cocoa company is going to start yielding cocoa every single year, and it's going to grow and grow and grow. The main plan was to use all the cocoa that the cocoa company is supplying us. So if we do that, then both businesses are going to be really successful. And luckily, it has worked out like that.
Yeah.
Whenever we've got a big client, we've had quite a big increase in supply, and so it's really worked out like that. And I guess I was probably a lot more ambitious with where I wanted the business to go probably 4 years ago, before COVID. I was like, right, I want the brand to be huge. I want it to be like the Red Bull, where you've got branded t-shirts, this and that. But I've realized that's not going to make me happy. That's not going to make Dan happy, or my brother, who's two brothers who are also in the business. That's going to be really freaking stressful. So now I'm a lot more kind of I understand what does make me happy, and where I think the business should go, and how we can grow it to a manageable size, whereby we're not sort of
Do you think that's important though, to initially have the stupidly big dream? Because you know, when you listen to these motivational talkers, they say dream so big that it scares you, because you know that's going to be your edge. Do you think like that kind of initial thing just gave you enough because if you start off went, well, it's going to be a manageable size, we're going to control like this, you knew what your kind of like perimeter was going to be to it. Do you think it would have been, you would have driven as hard initially to try and make it work, or do you think there's no kind of correlation between that?
I think we are looking at the business by trying to spot the next trend, trying to spot the next big gap, and we will then do the workings, and we'll see the size of it, and then we will grow the business based on the forecast of that opportunity. In terms of how big it could get, I mean, the figures in 10 years' time look amazing, which is great. And I'm just thinking, right, that's going to be great for my family, great for Dad. And that's, I think, and great for the people at Source as well. St. Vincent, Dom Rep, you know, we're employing about 120 people in St. Vincent, which is amazing. So if the big dream for me is the business is successful and it's profitable, and we, you know, I can pay the team really well for all the support they've given the business and the trust in joining a relatively young business. And then also the people at Source who've spent, you know, years farming cocoa, which is not easy.
How have your kind of like interests and kind of like mindset evolved towards focusing on like chocolate in this kind of area? Like, did you have to really go into it fully and really understand it and learn the processes to really fall in love with it? Or was it quite easy for you to pick it up and go, well, this is something I'm really interested in?
I think the like what you said earlier, the better you get at something, the more interested you are, the more knowledge you get of a certain topic, more often, the more likely you are to be more passionate about it. So I guess the experience I had was I worked for a cocoa farm in Malaysia for a couple of months, and then I worked for a sugar trader for a month, and then a chocolate kitchen, and then also a chocolate bar company as well, all in the space of a year, which sounds really bad. It sounds like I was using those businesses to get the experience, but it wasn't initially. It was like, right, I'm going to do a bit of work experience here, bit of work experience in trading, not with the view to go and set up a chocolate company, which is what it might look like if you look at my CV. It looks quite bad. So yeah, I think chocolate people see it everywhere. It's such a big commodity, but there's so many interesting nuances in cocoa varieties, how the different soil creates different flavour chocolate. It's much like a wine. And knowing all of this, and most of human beings not knowing anything about that is quite empowering. And when you go and speak to chefs and baristas, they're like, wow, I didn't realize that about chocolate. So
what is the actual process then from bean through to making your chocolate out?
So you plant you crack open a pod, right? You get a bean, right, which is covered in all this kind of sugary pulp, right? You get rid of that pulp, and you plant it in a bit of soil, right? Within 3 months, that seedling would have grown to probably about 30 centimeters, right? You'll then, what we do is you'll then take a cutting from a known tree where you know the cocoa variety of that tree and you know the flavor. And you'll then graft that cutling
to your shoot,
to the shoot, to the base of it, right? Luckily the video's on, so you'll see what I'm doing with my hands, right? And then you let it grow for another 3 months, and then you basically cut off the seedling part of the tree. So the part that you have grafted on will then be that tree. You'll then probably take about 3 to maybe to 7 years for the cocoa tree to start yielding a decent amount of cocoa. Which for a lot of farmers is a long period of time. That's why it's quite hard to get farmers to invest in cocoa, because there's that gap. Which is why you intercrop it with bananas, citrus fruit, mahogany, etc. So you get that added source of income. Once you get that pod that comes out of the tree, it grows basically out of these flowers. Really, the flower cushion. If you damage that flower cushion, a pod will never grow on it again. So it's really important you harvest it properly, right? Crack open the pod, and then basically ferment it. So it's probably about a 7-day process, anaerobic, aerobic process, lots of heat, lots of yeasts are produced, and basically that's when the cocoa bean turns brown. And you get that kind of flavor. Good fermentation, you get a really amazing flavor. This is often actually why the way we do it is slightly different to big industries, because the farmer will be doing the fermentation themselves on the forest floor essentially, whereas we are getting it off the farms and controlling in one place, so you get that consistent ferment. Then those beans are dried to a moisture level of about 6 to 7%. Which is really important. It's that amount. It's a bit like rice, 1 or 2% over, and all sorts of bacteria will grow. Was it just the cocoa process or chocolate as well?
No, chocolate as well. Just the whole thing.
Then those beans will then get shipped to our chocolate factories in Belgium and Switzerland. And essentially you'll roast the beans, right? And then you'll have an outer shell. That outer shell will basically expand as you roast it, probably till about, I think it's about 120 degrees for about 40 minutes. That's just the general parameters what we do. That outer shell will expand, and inside you have the cocoa nibs, which is essentially where you can make chocolate from, right? Then in the winnowing process, it's essentially like a hairdryer. you probably hair dry your hair now with the lengths it is.
I don't actually.
You don't.
Just let it go naturally.
If it's like a hairdryer, you'll blow off the outer shell, right? And the heavy part of the bean, which is the nib, that will fall down the cracks, right, into the chocolate making process, right? That will then be grinded into 100% liquor, which is basically 100% liquor, right? Or chocolate or whatever. And then you get that liquor, which is like a brown sludge, does not look pretty, and you put that in the conch, and then you add in your cocoa butter and sugar, and probably a little bit of lecithin to make it flow better for chocolatiers. And then that will then be tempered, which is where you get the kind of the shine and the snap from a chocolate.
Interesting. Okay.
If it's badly tempered, and it's like kind of white, so that means that kind of the tempers, it's kind of bloomed, so it's got hot and cooled again, but not in at the right temperature.
Right. Okay.
So that's it really, and then you get into the molding and you put it into your various packaging.
Interesting. Okay, so that's raised a few questions. So when you started this idea of creating a chocolate company, how hard was it to find people in the process for you to trust? Okay, you've got your farmers, you've got your kind of like stages in the island. St. Vincent is in.
Yeah, St. Vincent.
But how do you find your kind of like people in Belgium and Switzerland who are going to then produce chocolate? And
so it helped that in St. Vincent they set up the Vincentian Chocolate Company, which started in 2016. None of what happened at Islands would have happened but if we hadn't started learning about it there, right? So managed to find a couple of people that could make chocolate. Well, that they were sent over to Canada to learn how to make chocolate, and we managed to invest in some small chocolate making equipment. And I think this was maybe one of the main reasons that we started Islands, was that we made a chocolate there and we brought it over to England, sent it to the Great Taste Awards, and it got a 3-star Great Taste Award, which is mega.
Wow.
So that gave us that confidence. But I think we were doing it for a couple of years, probably till 2019, and realised quite quickly that we couldn't get any sort of scale if we were going to do it from St. Vincent, because it was a nightmare really. You have to, ship it from St. Vincent, which is probably 35 degrees. It's so hot in the centre of town. Take it to the port. It could all melt in that time, and then it's got to ship for 2 weeks to England, and then I had to do the wrapping for the first year in London.
Wow.
So that was a nightmare. So basically, I managed to find the chocolatier in Belgium. It's a small family business as well. Found him just by chance, and he it was quite a funny story. Is that both Zana and I drove out there with 3 sacks of cocoa to go and meet him. And we walked out, and he came out to meet us, and he said, whoa, before you come in, can I see your beans? So he went and opened the beans and gave them a massive sniff, basically, and then in his French accent said, "We can talk." And then we came
Really?
in. So he said, recently I wouldn't have let you come in if they were bad beans, because he has so many people turn up with really good quality beans that he has to turn away. So that was a big moment. Without him, we wouldn't be where we are, because we've got the cocoa experience and how you farm amazing cocoa and how you get the best flavour from the cocoa. If we didn't have him and his knowledge and expertise in chocolate making, it would be a rubbish product. So combining our experience is brilliant, because I guess you give the most amazing coffee beans to a barista, he or she can completely screw it up. So it's kind of the same.
It takes the most pressurizing part of the process out of your hands, essentially, and there's a level of trust. And so, you said you're wrapping chocolate in those kind of early days as well. What was kind of like your mindset to all this being involved in every part of the process? Was it just like, I got to do this, or you were really enjoying this whole being? I was like,
I got to do it. This is fun. This is how it all always starts, right? I was getting up at 6 o'clock, going to the gym, coming to work, having a pint of coffee, and literally boshing it all the way through the day and being absolutely exhausted at the end of the day. I can't do that now. That pint of coffee would send me over the edge. But I think when I started, I didn't really understand what would make a really good business. I didn't understand commercials. I didn't understand how hard the work is going to be. I didn't understand what success would really look like and what I'd actually need to do, because I'd never done a business before. So yeah, for all those people out there who think they've got to know everything before starting everything, I don't think you do, but I think you've got to learn really, really quickly. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's so interesting as well, understanding your mindset towards it, because when you're, as I said, when you're in the trenches, you don't really recognise everything you're doing and how impactful it's going to be moving forward in a few years' time. And like when you think about starting a business, or you think I've got this plan for it, you only think of the good sides of it. The things that's going to be fun to go and take it there and there, and that kind of reward and that kind of recognition is going to feel so great. But there's so much that goes around it as well.
Yeah,
that you just don't think about.
I don't think we knew. So we get an order from a restaurant, so say 200 quid.
Yeah.
Me and Zana would be like, yes, get it, 200 quid. But back then we didn't think like, right, what does that 200 quid actually mean, right? So it's actually probably cost us 130 quid to actually make that product. Yeah. And then you've got to deliver it. Yeah. And then we're taking home about 30 quid. So it's not, so now we're really sort of focused on the commercials and what makes sense and where to put our resources. Had I known all about commercials before, I think the business would probably be in everything.
Do you think it'd be in the worst place though, or better?
What had I know?
If you'd been really clued on the commercials and you'd gone, you know what, it's not worth doing that, and giving these people £200 worth of chocolate, like in some ways that opens doors when you have that naivety and you go, this is brand new and we don't recognise that importance.
Yeah, I agree. I think we wouldn't have started with bars had I known what I know now, because you've got to sell so many bars to actually make it profitable, millions, because and also people are so loyal to Green and Blacks, Lindt, Tony's now. It's very hard to nudge them off. I'm Green and Blacks and I only have 70%. Like you know those people, right? Yeah. So saying, please, can you buy islands? It's £8.20. Like they're not going to do that. So that's what it was like in the beginning. That was the challenge. But yeah.
What was it like, your first approach to one of these big Michelin star restaurants, or kind of like Gales? Like when you had that kind of idea going in for the meeting, how were you kind of preparing yourself? What were you thinking?
I think those meetings never get easier. Yeah. It depends on the day, really. Some days you feel really confident, right? I'm obviously smash this. Some days, like no matter like what's been happening in the week, you might be a little bit tense about it. But the main thing that Zana and I in particular, when we're doing the sales, focus on is just killing them with knowledge about cocoa and chocolate, and basically opening up even Michelin star chefs about what goes on in cocoa and chocolate and how you get that flavour. And they were fascinated by that. And with them signing on our chocolate initially, that gave us so much confidence. Yeah. Without that, we'd still probably be selling bars. I think we used them and their expertise to be like, right, okay, what can you taste here? What about the roast? Can we develop that, etc., etc.? So, it's fun, and it's kind of a pinch yourself moment. I think getting in front of Roy and Joseph and Gales, Zana and I couldn't quite believe our luck, and luckily, the chocolate tasted great on the day. Yeah. They loved the story. It was the right time for them to change their hot chocolate, and it all worked out. And they were really, really open to hearing it, right? They weren't they kind of were open to the pitch. We weren't having to do a hard sell. We were just saying, look, this is who we are. Yeah. This is our great product. Yeah. We're nice people. Do you want to work with us? You seem like nice people too. Yeah.
I love that. What were some of like the biggest hurdles you faced then, challenges you had, which you overcame and kind of like maybe changed the direction and made you reassess actually how you wanted to move forward?
In business,
starting the business and actually getting it to growing it and figuring out who you want to sell to.
I think there was changing bars into buttons, which could go into baristas and chefs. I think it was changing chocolatiers. Yeah. I think it was changing our warehouse, getting a warehouse to where we're doing the fulfillment. Okay. I think it's growing the team, which is really quite hard. I mean, when you've never run a business before, you don't really know what to look for. You don't know what the best traits are for somebody in operations, or what the best traits are for someone in sales. Yeah. So we are winging it on all fronts, and still am to a degree. I think other challenges, I guess, our product is more expensive than bulk for good reason. We're paying farmers properly. Big companies aren't. It's as simple as that, and it's trying to convince the buyers, like, right, this premium is for a good reason. It's not why is our chocolate so expensive. It's why is the competitor's chocolate so cheap? Who's getting paid? So I think there's challenges like all the time, every week, every day is like, it's relentless. And I didn't realize that. Even Dad, he did property before, he didn't realize how relentless it is, because you rely on a lot of people. You rely on your chocolatiers, you rely on your team, you rely on the purchasing of your clients. You rely on cocoa actually growing. Please grow.
There's so many cogs in the whole engine, which if one goes, the whole thing can stop, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Do you think getting into some of these kind of like getting into Gales and to the big restaurants and stuff were also enough big wins to give you the momentum to keep pushing further and further and bigger and bigger?
Definitely. But I think what I didn't realize as well, like when you get bigger, there are more strains on the business as well. It's right, you need to buy more stock. Therefore, you need more cash. So there's a real strain on cash flow. You need to hire more people. When you hire more people, you need to spend more time nurturing them and getting them on board with the brand, getting them to learn how to taste chocolate properly, etc., etc. Then you kind of forget about carrying on with the sales. So there's always like, a give and take with certain things in the business.
Interesting. And can we go back to, I'm really interested in the farmers and the traceability and that kind of ethical side, which you guys bring. Like, where did that come from the start? Was that always something you wanted to do, and it's grown within, it's built within the authenticity of the brand?
Yeah, I think we just want to do it the right way. It seems really, really obvious to us. We're fortunate enough to be able to essentially start an industry from scratch on St. Vincent. There were about 30 farmers that were interested in farming cocoa, but we also didn't want to rely solely on farmers. We wanted to buy up our own land so that we could hire people at source and they could be part of the team. So, paying their NIS, all of that sort of stuff. Having team members there has all sorts of added value for us, and also the people and, the government in St. Vincent, etc. So that sourcing model was pretty straightforward from day dot, just doing the right thing, paying people the right price, paying the farmers the right price, giving team members opportunity to grow within the business, and making them realize what amazing work they're doing and showing them, seeing how well Islands is doing in the UK, tasting the chocolate and Vincentian chocolate. Most cocoa farmers have never tasted chocolate.
Really?
Which is ridiculous.
Wow.
So I think it's just doing the right thing. That's part of our values, is integrity, like doing the right thing.
And I saw also on the website it said you've planted over 1 million trees. Is that literally just growing the farms and kind of like maintaining the land, I guess?
Exactly, yeah. So every acre of land has about 444 cocoa trees. Within that, you have bananas, citrus fruits, and all those other fruit crops that I mentioned. So
are you guys selling that, or are you allowing the farmers to sell that on their own? Like, what's like, or do you have to have that for the health of the cocoa plants?
So, I guess for the farmers, the main thing is, right, we're saying to Wilf Marriott, right, you've got 5 acres. You used to farm bananas, but you've stopped doing that since you're not getting subsidised by the EU anymore. That kind of happened, I think it was in the 70s, right? Everything's stopped. And we'll say, right, why don't you farm cocoa? We'll give you free plants to farm.
Okay.
And you'll say, great, but I'm not going to get any return from that for at least like 4 years. So what are you going to do? So we then, give them bananas, etc., to plant. So you get that added source. And it's the same for us. If we've got a piece of land, we quite like to see a reward from it, albeit a lot less value than cocoa. But also the cocoa tree needs about 50% shade in its early years, in the first couple of years. So that's what the banana trees offer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. How important has it been for you to surround yourself with kind of the right people? You know, whether it's within work or outside work.
Oh, it's everything,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah, I think it has to. I mean, I think the team at Islands is everything, and without a team, you're absolutely screwed. Without happiness at home, you're gonna struggle at work. I always find like when I'm really really happy in life, I'm so much better at work. I'm more confident. I'm more enthusiastic. I'm more encouraging, and I think you get that. You get energy from people. You know, I get good energy from you. From Laura, I get a really chilled energy. She really helps me. She's very relaxed. So when I've come back from a 12-hour working day and the cocoa price has gone crazy and it's been super stressful, and I come home and I've got Laura there just being chilled, that really, really helps me. Likewise, when something really needs to get done and I'm working with Dad, he's an absolute machine. He'll get things done, and you get that energy off him. And I think it's just, and I suppose friends as well, you know, friends being interested in how you are, what you do. I think it's really, really important. I mean, balance, otherwise what's the point?
That's very true. What kind of like expectations kind of do you put on yourself now as a leader of the business as well? And like, how much are you kind of focusing yourself on becoming a better leader as well as growing the business?
Yeah, it's all that self-improvement.
Oh, this whole next section is going to be all about this stuff.
Okay, it gets into the therapy
this
session.
This is the therapy session now, yeah.
I try and improve myself every day,
okay.
To a degree, whether it's improving myself or just maybe it's actually just getting rid of all that baggage that I've kind of accumulated over the years. Mm-hmm. That's what it's more about. It's about having less ego. It's about caring less about it not being perfect, just generally just being more calm and more like, I guess me and Dad always talk about the analogy of a duck, and the duck will be on the water just looking so calm and serene, but underwater they might be kicking like crazy. So I think I'm just trying to learn to be calm in all situations, and I think there's a positive in everything, no matter how bad you may think it seems at that time. And you only know that through just experience and time on this planet. Yeah.
And how were you when you hired your first kind of like team, like group of people around you initially? Like, how was that figuring out, right, I've got to tell them what to do, I've got to figure out how to allocate their time? And
first employee was Zander. I went to uni with him.
Yeah.
And he's gonna hate me for saying it, but he rocked up, he was like in a beanie, and I was like, God, what are you doing, mate? But I put a job out, and he emailed me in and emailed Dad as well at the same time, just made it really, really professional. And that gave me the confidence, right? He's the sort of guy that I want to work with. And I'd also worked with him for 2 months on the cocoa farms in St. Vincent under quite tough conditions, and never had a crossword with him. Still haven't to this day. So I think that's testament to him as well. Sometimes I probably do boss him about. But we've got a really good relationship where we can be in the heat of a discussion, and then we can just be like, right, lunch, and then just walk out and you change. But hiring people and growing a team is tough, because you want to be like who you think you are, or who I think I am. I think I'm quite a nice person, nice and relaxed. But sometimes in business you can't be like that. Sometimes you need to be quite strict, not strict, but just quite straight. Let's get things done. So that's quite tricky, and it's dealing with all my team is relatively young. We're hiring a couple more people who do up the average of age, which is good. That's not that easy, when you just see people exactly your age and kind of bossing them about. But equally, everyone in the team has a lot of respect for everyone, and I don't think I'd hire someone who wouldn't. Yeah.
And what does it feel like having people saying they want to work for you as well? Is it quite easy to, well, not let your ego go, but sort of almost inflate yourself a bit and go, God, we're doing quite well, or I'm doing quite, imagine, look where we've come from? Or is it just taking your stride? It
just is what it is. I don't think about it too much. I think that's great. If anything, I'm like, shit, this better work. Bear in mind, so that's it. Like, right, hiring people, leaving their jobs that they've been in for 10 years and coming to work for us. You're like, God, okay, I hope I can give you the pay rise next year that you expect.
Yes.
We hope that you can feel value. I hope you think I'm a good leader. I hope you think that this business is as good as it might look from the outside. So there's actually probably more of that neggy Nigel on the shoulder when you're taking people on instead of actually blowing up the ego.
No, I love that. Super interesting. How are you learning to become a better leader, like every day?
Listen to podcasts. Not necessarily to business leading podcasts, because sometimes they stress me out a bit. Like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you got to like work hard, you got to like no drinking, all this sort of stuff. And I'm just like, oh God, no thanks. I listen to people like Alan Watts or Krishnamurti or people like that who are talking about life and how the social structures that we have are kind of almost irrelevant and looking at the bigger picture, looking into the fact that we're such a tiny little ant in this massive universe within hundreds of universes. Yeah. So understanding how small we are and how irrelevant we are actually helps me become a better leader. It takes the pressure off me. It kind of, I've talked to Laura about it. She doesn't really get it when I talk about that. Maybe it's just, it just helps me. But I'm just relentlessly kind of thinking about it. I don't think it's from an ego point of view, but I think it's just from trying to enjoy life more, enjoying the pressures more. I think one thing I have learned recently is when you're feeling nervous, right, before a big pitch or before a podcast or whatever, is to not fight those fears or insecurities, just like be with them and actually just try and enjoy them. That really, really helps. The moment you actually just let your body be nervous, it kind of just goes. Yeah. Like I'd admit, I had a few butterflies before starting here. Yeah. And I just tried it, and it just goes within seconds. Yeah. So that's my finding over the last couple of weeks. Really.
It's interesting because I have a similar thing where I last year I did like a whole year coaching with like a life coach and joined a men's group basically, but it wasn't like this kind of big alpha dog kind of men's group. It was one of these like recognizing a holistic approach to like masculinity and femininity, all that kind of stuff. And it got to a point with me where I was like, I need to stop setting expectations for how things are going to go. Yeah. And just go and say, well, I'm going to experience what it's going to be, whether it's good or bad. And like starting this podcast was like, it doesn't have to be a good podcast. I mean, like, I just wanted to do it and experience what it was like to be a bad podcaster or to be a good podcaster or to be mediocre. Like, then you have no pressure on your shoulders, and it changes your mindset completely to actually how you approach things. You go and say yes to more things, but you sit back and you go, well, how is this going to go and how am I going to ride through it? Which is
also good and bad. Like sometimes going back to business, we've made what we thought at the time was a really, really good decision. And then it turned out to be a really shite decision. Yeah. So you never really know. And the older you get, the more you realise that some things are good, some things are bad. But actually, what's that quote from William Shakespeare? It's like, nothing's good or bad, it's thinking that makes it so. Right? Everything just is what it is. Yeah. When you overthink it, that's when you're probably going to focus more on the negative side of things. But yeah, just going with it and realizing that actually at the end of the day, nothing really matters that much. You know, we're going to be dead quite soon, and weirdly, that helps me to a degree. Yeah.
Have you ever suffered with like imposter syndrome? Going to any of these kind of like awards, like the chocolate kind of like award shows or whatever you go through, like do you ever go in and feel like, God, there's so many people here who have done so much and we're brand new and I don't feel right in this space, or you kind of like very at peace with yourself and don't worry about that?
I think I suffer it just periodically, not all the time. I think going up and getting an award, say the Cocoa of Excellence Award, right, for the Cocoa, like I don't feel that's not me. That's just that's everyone. Yeah. I feel hopefully the team members feel like everyone is involved in the success of the business. It's just because I'm the owner and Dad's the owner, it doesn't necessarily mean it's all on us. And I think people, when they listen to podcasts, I mean, I probably did this when I was younger, of like the say Richard Branson or whatever. Yeah. I think it's just him that's done all of it, but he would have had an unbelievable team underneath him, risk takers, people who weren't risk takers, you know, amazing finance people, amazing COOs, etc., to get them to where it is. So, yeah, what is imposter syndrome? It's kind of just like you don't feel like
You're good
you
enough
feel
to be where
out.
you are.
Yeah, you feel out of place. You feel like I shouldn't actually be here. I don't deserve to be here in a way.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I think I try and like any negativity, I'm like, right, see you later. No thanks. Like, go away. There's that guy Napoleon Hill, who you might have listened to. It's Think and Grow Rich, but it's not really about being rich. But he basically says negative thoughts, you go to work on them and they go, you know, just like don't let them come in. Because often I think like probably easier to think negative thoughts, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know
why either, actually. I think sometimes for me, like my biggest struggle is actually believing I'm good enough to actually achieve what I want to achieve. That's something I've always struggled with. I was like, oh, maybe I don't deserve this. This is such a big and silly dream. And it's actually negative backwards, and I've struggled to accept the positive side to it. So like the negativity is easier because it seems to be more like it's going to be a reality.
Yeah.
We're surrounded by so many things which are negative anyway. It's like we're aligned to that frequency almost to just fall into it. I have no idea.
But what's going to happen if it goes wrong, you know?
Well, no, exactly.
As well, like it's always thinking about the worst thing that can happen, and that rarely happens. And when it does, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Yes. No, exactly.
So yeah, it's an interesting one. Do you suffer from it big time or?
A lot less so now. I mean, you know, when you decide randomly out of the blue you're going to start a podcast and you're going to put it online.
I'm quite jealous. I've always wanted to do one.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people said this to me.
I've
always wanted to start one.
Yeah.
But the thing is like you have to recognise for one thing, 95% of people aren't even going to listen. 95% of people you know don't even give a shit.
Yeah.
And the ones
how's
who
your podcast doing? It's really cool, but they haven't actually listened to one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like the people who do listen actually have a vested interest in you, and they actually are gunning for you to be successful. That changes it as well. Like I think we live in such a world with social media where we're just judging. They've got such a good life. Look at that. And it's like you want to have that feeling as well for yourself. It's really easy to throw that opinion.
I think you mentioned earlier about how important it is surrounding yourself with people that are good for you. I think that's one thing. I think when you are successful to a degree, having people around you that are really, really happy that you're having success, that's a key thing, because I think people do try and pull you down naturally. A lot of times when you're not that close with them. So I think that's a real good value in a really good friend or a good partner or a good family member, is they really, really honestly want you to do really well.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
What does fulfillment mean to you?
Oh, fulfillment in work is just getting the goods from one day.
Yes.
So that's how I normally refer to fulfillment. But I think fulfillment generally is just feeling at peace with where I am and what I'm doing. And I say peace because I think happiness is sometimes often quite like fleeting. But actually what we all really want is just to be quite peaceful and just to like go with the flow. Happiness is kind of like that elation, and we know that actually it can't last forever, but being at peace, that's where I want to be. That's what fulfillment is for me. And I can get to that place, or I'm in that place naturally, and I, more so now than I was before. And I know my triggers that got me out of that peaceful fulfillment. One being coffee. I can't drink too much coffee. I can only drink coffee when I'm feeling quite calm. Normally I only drink it on the weekends. Yeah. Like today, I didn't drink coffee because I had a super busy morning. I realised I've got to go on a podcast, talk for an hour and a half. I don't want to be jittery, right? And I guess not saying yes to everything. I think some of my mates would probably say that I'm.
That is so big to learn as well.
Yeah.
Learning how to say no.
Yeah, most people, I think a lot of my mates think I'm terrible at my phone, but I just generally don't have the mental capacity sometimes just to work flat out and then spend time with Laura, Aria, our dog, crazy dog Luna, and then also have time just to like put your feet up and just like not think about anything. So I think I'm really waffling with this question.
No,
I'm just
honestly,
I'm trying to work it out myself.
Yeah.
Going back to this therapy session that we're having, I think it's also having the energy and the headspace of just feeling nice and calm about things, enjoying the small things. I get most fulfillment about waking up, going down, having a cup of tea. Luna, the dog, comes and sits on me, and I just sit there for 20 minutes. That is one of my most favorite times in the day, because you're not doing anything. And we're often told you've got to do. God, like, so tiring.
I literally, without blowing a trumpet, wrote a blog post and I released it this morning about creating space in your life.
Okay, that's a good time. I didn't read that.
So it's just come out this morning, so don't worry.
Okay.
And so essentially, one of the things, the last year I really spent time doing was realising that for good things to come into life, you need to firstly get rid of the bad things. You need to create the space for something to replace it. But also creating space is like actually having time when you just don't have any distractions. No phone, there's no people. Like when I go back to my mum's in the countryside, every morning I'll go for an hour walk on my own without any music, and I just go and like listen to nature.
Listen to the birds, listen to the tractors or whatever. Yeah, it's
mad. And I've gone there when I've been really caught up in thoughts, and I've gone there and I've been like, what the hell am I going to do? And I'm 20 minutes into walk and I go,
it's gone.
That's what I'm going to do. And like it just comes through, and like creating space and having those kind of sacred moments for yourself really allow you to get rid of like these periphery thoughts, which are all clouded here. They kind of all dissipate.
Yeah.
And then the real kind of true intentions of what you want to be starts to rise through, and you start to hear it, because we don't hear ourselves very often. Like, how often do you sit there or spend the time of the day and go, what do I actually want to do? Like, am I actually happy? Like, is everything going really how I want it to be? Like, am I really giving everything into this? So it's
often you're just doing things without even thinking you're doing them, right? You get in the car, you drive to work, you can't even remember driving, you're just there, and then you're doing your emails, you have the meeting. And I think your brain kind of just goes into that thought kind of overload, and you're not really in reality. You're having a bath, but you're thinking about the pitch at 9:30 tomorrow, and if you've got all the samples ready, you're not actually there.
There's presence.
In presence, yeah. And everyone always talks about presence, right? And it's such a buzzword, be in the present moment.
Yeah.
But genuinely, when you are, there's nothing better. Nothing better. Because when you're, I guess, you're at the pub, right, and the sun's coming down, right, and you're just there, and you have that moment where you just don't think of anything. You're just in that kind of peace space. That's fulfillment, really. Is when you're there.
I love that. I was just thinking those moments for me when I was at school mostly came playing sport. And I was going to say, like, maybe for cricket for you, that was a lot of it. Like, it was just so much focus in the moment and the presence there.
Do you know what? I would be so much better at cricket if I knew what I knew now about mental stuff and how to cope with things going badly, how to understand that nerves are often what you think are nerves are actually maybe excitement, same feeling, and learning how to grind it out. I was so interested in. I was towards the end of my inverted commas career. I was so good at getting 30. I'd hit a few fours, hit 6 or whatever, and I'd have a really good time. I'd be in there for a short amount of time, and then I'd get a bit bored.
Really?
I'd get a bit bored. I'd be like, I'm actually quite looking forward to. This is really bad, actually. I'm not looking forward to getting out and going and having a cup of tea and walking around the boundary.
Yeah.
But if I knew what I know now, I think I'd be more interested in being like, right, this is going to be a tough session. Let's get through it.
Interesting.
How can I pick up the body language of the bowler? How can I pick up the body language of the umpire? Right? Do I have? This is getting quite technical.
No, I love it.
Does that umpire like me? If I go for a sweep off a spinner and I miss it, is he going to give me out straight away, or is he going to probably give me the benefit of the doubt because we've had a nice chat?
Yeah.
You know, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How does that apply to everyday life as well for you, or business? Like, have you do you find these moments where you're in a kind of an intense period of work and then you do kind of get bored, or is it just so full on that you can't? Because boredom, when you are an entrepreneur, sometimes you can actually get quite bored. Like, essentially, like, I know you've got so much to do, but it's like you're just doing it for doing it rather than because it inspires you.
luckily with what I'm doing, you can see the rewards quite quickly. You can see like, right, I'm doing this because of X. I guess cricket, I was doing that. I didn't really know if I really wanted it or wanted to play for England or whatever. So I think there's a lot of people in the business that I'm really good friends with as well. Sana went to uni with, Ned, younger brother.
Yeah.
Phoebe lived with my best mate. So there are distractions like that. There's the opportunity to go and make a really banging hot chocolate and just take some time out. And I really do love what I do, and I know why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for me and ego and to make loads of money. I'm doing it for reasons outside of me. Aria, people at the source, Zonda, all those sorts of things.
That. Love that. How has your kind of like mindset changed to life then, in general? And maybe it's changed again since you've had Aria as well. Like you got your new kind of motivator and driver, but in terms of the way you look at your life, do you have completely different kind of like glasses on to the way you see it and the way you see?
I think you just sort of start enjoying smaller things. Like you wake up and you listen to the birds and you're like, oh, that's a really nice sound. Or you walk in the park and you're like, oh, I love the smell of like freshly cut grass. It's those small things that when you're growing up, you're like, oh God, that's a bit lame, mate, if someone said that. But actually,
your dad's usually, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I think you understand what works for you, and you realise that what works for Wilf Lindell might not work for me. And it's having the confidence to do that. And also, like, no one else really knows. Like, everyone's winging it as well. With Aria, which is quite funny, I kind of look at her. There she is, like, really happy, smiley most of the time. And I did look at her and be like, every person that I meet, everyone that I'm scared of meeting or like scared of doing a pitch to or whatever, was in that state, like a little child, really innocent. So there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, takes away all kind of the seriousness, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Into like passions. What's interesting, okay, cricket was just such a natural thing for you. It was one of your big passions. And then going to chocolate, you've had to like learn through doing and loving it from the more you've got to know it. Do you think people can curate their passions and kind of like actually find something really working it to do it? Or do you think you were just lucky with falling into chocolate and that just being something which is...
I probably shouldn't say this, but when I was younger, I didn't eat much chocolate. I was more of a, strawberry laces type of guy.
Classic.
So with chocolate as a perfect example, the more you learn about it, the more you understand how amazing it is and all the interesting nuances, as I've mentioned, but all the people that you meet, all the places that you go to, and then also just being able to share your knowledge that you've accumulated for whatever reason with people that are also interested, like yourself or like Rory at Gales, telling people stuff that they don't know is really nice, because you just, I don't know, you feel right, I'm adding value to them as well. So yeah, I think you can create passions, but as I said with cricket, I mean, I wasn't entirely that conscious when I started picking up a cricket bat. It just happened. Maybe I knew, right, deep down, I was like, oh, I can actually catch this ball really well. And look, and Dad and Mum are saying how amazing it is. I'm just going to carry on doing it. That's how passions develop, I think, probably. So I think yes is the answer to that.
No, right, final three questions. What's kind of the big vision for Islanders Chocolate? Like where are you looking to go with it? And
good question. I get asked this a lot. The vision is to essentially partner up with, this is what it is right now, on today, it might change.
It might change tomorrow.
To partner up with a small handful of medium to large size businesses, right? And to supply them with chocolate and to make their operation much better because they are using our chocolate, and to make sure that they are sourcing a chocolate that is not only much better flavour, but sourced responsibly and people at source are being looked after. So that's the kind of the main aim, and that's our kind of business direction. business to business, really. We've got the retail side of the business, which is launched with Ocado, which is doing well, and Bailey and Sage, Liberties, etc. The plan with that probably is to end up in a supermarket, the Sainsbury's, Waitrose, M&S. That's the plan with that. And Ned, my brother, is focusing on that. And then just generally, hopefully, just to really, really enjoy it, get more team members behind me that have done it before. So all of us currently don't take so much strain when it grows. And it's hopefully to keep the team in St. Vincent really happy, keep the team in Dominican Republic really happy, and pay the team here at Islands really well so that they can go and have a nice life as well. So it's quite simple, really. I think we're almost there. I think I've been going 5 years now, but I say it's really 3 because we had the COVID year where that was just a shambles. Like all of our restaurants, we had about 70 restaurants at the time. They just stopped ordering overnight. So yeah, I think that's the key focus, to keep constantly, I suppose, developing our business and why we're trying to do it. We've got our values, which is a kind of an acronym of SISU, which kind of goes into kind of solutions, not problems, integrity, kind of unity, and kind of the first S is kind of soulful, like being really, really passionate about and putting your soul into what you do. And that's what I want to happen with Islands. So yeah.
Really like that. What are the keys to succeeding at your dreams and kind of like following and building upon a passion?
Headspace. Being happy within yourself, i.e. being in the right space that you can put your soul into it. Having the time to do it, I think, because going back to like, if you're passionate about something, how can you achieve it, right?
Yeah.
There's really feeling in your heart that you really love it, and not thinking, oh, I should love this. You know, you're starting your podcast out, you might think you love it, but you might not actually be loving it. For example, just being really, really honest with yourself.
Disclaimer, I am.
Disclaimer, he is. Yeah, he told me he is. But then also being like, right, and I think we talked about this before we came on, like, is this actually where I want to be right now? Right? Is there other passions that I've got? So I did a bit of art back at school, right? Probably rubbish now because, you kind of lose touch. But I'm always saying, right, if the business is successful, at some point I do want to take a new challenge and do a bit more art. Like Laura's an artist, Laura's mum's an artist, Laura's dad's an artist as well. So that they've got that artistic blood there. So I'd love to do that a bit more. And I think probably end up living in the country. I have passion for being outdoors. I'd much rather be outdoors. Like if there's a lunch and it's 10 degrees, I'd way rather be outside than inside. So it's that really.
I love that. Yeah. Love that. And the one lesson you'd like to teach Aria and maybe potential other kids about life moving forward?
I think what you do in life is not who you are. Like you might be a cleaner, but that's not your identity. There's a lot more to that. So treat everyone. This is actually more than one. Treat everyone with respect, no matter what they do or how you perceive them initially. Treat them like equals, because we're all the same human being, just a little spot on this planet. No different. I think people have different. I think that was my ankle clicking on the door. And I think this is a really good question. I haven't thought about this. What would I tell her? I would tell her that actually what I'm trying to do with her, and so is Laura, is like there's always a good in everything. Like she rolled off the sofa the other day, right? And normally I think as a parent you'd run to her. Oh, is everything okay? Is everything okay? Right. But I laughed, right? At her. Oh, isn't that funny? And then she just started laughing. So it's maybe trying to my long-winded answer, trying to get her to see the good in everything and saying no to the bad.
No, I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
this
for having me.
episode.
That was fun.
Really appreciate it, and
Nice.
so interested to see where Island's Chocolate's going to go.
Cool.
And again,
And you too. Looking forward to seeing how this podcast.
oh, well, thank you, sir. Thank you
Nice.
very much. Cheers.
Good man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Valley of Outlaws podcast. Please follow us across Spotify and YouTube and see all our latest news across our socials.